Well, Parliament has now passed a motion to review Section 25 of the Constitution, which of course deals with property and land expropriation. Parliament's Constitutional Review Committee has been charged with reviewing Section 25 of the Constitution to allow for land expropriation without compensation, and is expected to report back to the National Assembly by the end of August. And joining us from our parliamentary studios in Cape Town is the co-chairperson of the Review Committee, Mr. Vincent Smith. Good evening to you, and thank you for talking to us about this. A number of questions, of course, have been raised around Section 25. Many legal minds saying that land expropriation can go ahead even if that review doesn't take place. What's the latest?
Well, we're going to ask that question of South Africans. I agree with you that experts are saying that the Constitution in its current form doesn't need to be amended. But I think we should afford South Africans an opportunity to answer that question as well. And that is exactly what we're asking South Africans. If Section 25 must be amended, how must it be amended? And if it's fine in its current form, then they should say so, and we'll report to Parliament accordingly.
So if we're looking then at, shall we call them the terms of reference for the committee, how wide are you going to go?
Well, the terms of reference are very, very specific. Should the Constitution change, Section 25 specifically, and if it should change, how should it change, and what changes do South Africans want to see? And if it is fine in its current form, then that's what we're going to be saying. So that's the length and breadth of the mandate of this committee. In terms of how we're going to get that answer is a different story, and we presented a program to the committee that was accepted this afternoon.
Now, you're looking for submissions from South Africans. How's that process meant to work?
Well, it's two-pronged. The first is there's an advert that has been issued round about the middle of April, asking for written submissions. The closing date on that advert was the 30th of May. Today we took a decision after having received requests from stakeholders. The end date for written submissions has now been moved to the 15th of June. So there's the written submission aspect of consultation. The second aspect is the committee going to the people. And that will start around about the 26th of June. We will go to each province of this country, spend 4 days in the rural provinces and 5 days in the urban provinces, and have discussions with South Africans.
It's a tricky one because obviously there's been already a big debate in the National Assembly around the merit or against for this constitutional review. When people make written submissions, I mean, who are you looking to hear from? Ordinary South Africans, NGOs, civil society, that sort of thing?
No, every South African has a stake in what we're asking, and we are looking for submissions from everybody. And that is why, when we go out to the provinces, we will ensure that at least one of those days will be a weekend, so that even those that are working during the week would have an opportunity to come and tell us as Parliament what it is that they want to see in terms of amendment or otherwise of Section 25 of the Constitution. So all South Africans, the learned and the unlearned, academics, religious, an ordinary civil society, everybody has a stake and everybody must participate.
What do you make of the criticism that people, particularly who are against this, say this is mere political posturing by the various political leaders, but that the real issue around a land program in South Africa needs to be the nuts and bolts as far as delivery is concerned, that's where the failures have been, rather than necessarily the law as it stands?
Well, South Africans that we interact with have made it very clear that the land is probably central to everything else that we do in this country. It's our dignity, it's about ensuring that equality will not just be a slogan but a reality. And therefore, I don't agree that the land question is not important. It is the beginning of, I believe, ensuring that we deal with the inequalities that face our country currently. It is urgent, and it's something that most people agree needs to be attended to.
Yes, Mr. Smith, the criticism is not so much that it is not important, but that the failure has been implementation of what's already on the table. So rather than going through a drawn-out process that looks for a review, the real issue, many are saying, has been a failure to implement what's already there, that urgency you speak about simply hasn't been there, and some are suggesting that a review will not necessarily bring it about.
Well, I'm not going to take sides one way or the other. I agree with you that there are those that say the current Section 25 is fine in its current form, but we do know that 25 years later, very little land has been redistributed. If South Africans, for instance, come and say, make it very clear in the Constitution so that there is no chance of it being challenged, then they must tell us how do we make it clear so that there is no challenge and it's unambiguous. But that land must be redistributed. That must happen. And of course, there are those that are saying amend the Constitution, and there are those that are saying that the Constitution is fine in its current form. And it's that debate that we are going to facilitate when we go out to the provinces.
So when you go to the provinces, when you go to people on the ground, are you also going to be dealing with people who've got experiences where the land restitution process has not worked favorably for them?
Well, I would imagine that those people who have lived experience will use that as motivation why the Constitution should be or should not be changed. But we must make this very clear. Ours is about the amending or otherwise of the Constitution. South Africans who have got outstanding queries or concerns about land that has been expropriated or taken away, that must be dealt with through the Department of Rural Development. That is not our mandate. Ours is purely about should the Constitution change, and if it should, how must it be changed, or is the Constitution in its current form able for South Africans or government to do an expropriation without compensation exercise.
All right, that was Mr. Vincent Smith, who's the co-chairperson of the review committee looking at Section 25 in our Cape Town Parliamentary studios.